After what I would consider a disappointing season for the Phoenix Suns coming to an end at the hands of a young Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves in embarrassing fashion, the Suns organization has a lot to think about over this next offseason. What's next for the Phoenix Suns? What's goody? It's your host Jay Rose as always, and I'm starting a little series going through all the teams in the playoffs and what they should do going into this next offseason, so let's get into it. Over 90% of the people that watch my content are not subscribed, so if you're messing with the videos, please hit that sub button and the noti bell so you'll get notified every time I upload. But let's get back to the hoops. First of all, I want to talk about how their season ended, and it really was embarrassing for the Phoenix Suns, a team that was looked to be a three-headed monster and an offensive powerhouse coming into this season, really getting outgunned by a team that I don't feel had as much firepower as them on paper, at least. Anthony Edwards pretty much dominated this series, averaging 31 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists on 50% from the field and 43% from three. Just offensively, he was head and shoulders above everybody on the Phoenix Suns, and for a team that has 3 offensive powerhouses, I feel like that can't be the case. They also got outstruck by guys like Jaden McDaniels at times, and he came up huge in this series, had multiple 20-point games, and in a series where your scorers aren't even really getting that many points, I think that's a huge problem, having Jaden McDaniels come out and outscore your guys like that. As for Devin Booker, he was a no-show for the first 2 games. Obviously in game 4 when they were about to get eliminated, he dropped 49 points. He dropped almost a 50 ball, and outside of that game, if you take the game 4 out, he averaged 20 points on some pretty mid efficiency, and I don't think that's good enough for your supposedly offensive powerhouse of a team. And to make it even worse, the guy you just traded for in this offseason, Bradley Beal, he was a no-show for 3 games. Bradley Beal, he averaged 16 points on 4.5 assists and 3 rebounds, and that's including the 1 game he did play well. So for you to have one guy who most of the series is averaging 20 points, and then your third option, who's also really just a scorer, averaging 16, that's not a good look. You're not getting a lot of production out of those guys, and this is a team that's really predicated on their scoring, and their goal is to outscore you every night. So for you to have not outscored that team any night is terrible, especially because you don't have the personnel to do other things on the court. You don't have an overabundance of defenders. You don't have an abundance of shooters. You have your 3 guys. You had Grayson Allen, who got hurt, and outside of that, you're running on Yusuf Nurkic and Josh Okogie. It's not really a great look for that team outside of those 3 guys. So if 2 of your 3 guys aren't performing, it's like, what do we do here? Notice how I said 2 of the 3 guys. I do want to give KD his credit. A lot of people are saying KD got fried in the series, and I'm not going to say that it's not true. Anthony Edwards definitely did do KD dirty in the series. He did, but KD offensively absolutely held his own, averaging 27 points and 6 rebounds, only 3 assists, but he shot 50-40 from the field. He only had 1 game where I would say he played bad, and that was in game 2. Outside of that, he was very, very consistent throughout this series, and he held his own offensively. So I give credit to KD for coming out there and doing what he needed to do. He really did need Devin Booker and Bradley Beal to give him something. So you wonder if your 3-headed monster turns into the 3-headed monster they're supposed to be, what this series looks like, but it just really didn't come to fruition, and I'm not a big fan of how this team is built in the first place. So for your offensively built squad to not even do that well offensively, that's a huge red flag. Now I want to get into what the organization views on it, because I think the organization, they said out loud that most teams in the NBA would prefer to have the Phoenix Suns roster opposed to what roster they have, and I think that's kind of weird considering they went out in the first round in 4 games. I think there's a lot of rosters in the NBA that are not only constructed better than this team, but also just are better overall. Like, you have a big 3, and I don't even think your big 3 is all that, to be completely honest, which is going to lead me into my next point. For right now, I think the organization really needs to sit down and be down to earth about what the situation they're in is, because this is a poorly built roster surrounded around 3 stars who all were hurt last year. I think your odds of having a higher seed could have been a lot better if all 3 of them played last year. I think they closed out the season pretty well, especially with the tough schedule that they had. But overall, it was just a very up and down season. And then you get into the playoffs and everyone is healthy and y'all couldn't get it done. Y'all couldn't even get a game off. So I think the organization definitely has to come to terms with what their situation is and move accordingly going into next season, because if they bring this same exact roster back as is, that's a problem. Well, here's what I think they should do and focus on next season, and I'm going to start off with trading Bradley Beal. I don't think they ever should have traded for Bradley Beal. all of the pieces that they traded away, including the pieces they traded away for Kevin Durant, could have definitely helped this team. I think players like Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul, all of these guys are players that they kind of need. I'm not going to lie to you. I think keeping Chris Paul might have actually been beneficial for you, seeing how your season just went. And DeAndre Ayton, lastly, is just like, dude, y'all really could have used Ayton. And I'm not saying that Ayton is this really big center or he's just this great player. I think DeAndre Ayton is a decent center. He's all right. I think defensively he has a lot to work on, but even just as a big body, y'all absolutely could have used DeAndre Ayton. Everything that does not include scoring, I think y'all needed help with. They need help with the assist work. They need help with defense. They need help with rebounds. They need help with post presence. They need help with rim presence, period. They need help with all of it. And they traded away pieces that helped them do that and make their team more complete to get this big three, and I just don't think it was worth it. If you could have traded Chris Paul for Bradley Beal, I'm sure you could have traded Chris Paul for pieces that would have fit your roster much better, and I said that in the offseason when this trade happened. So, like I said, I think Bradley Beal should be gone. The problem is I don't know who's going to want to trade for such a one-dimensional player on that huge contract. I think Bradley Beal might be the highest paid player on that team, if I'm not mistaken. Not the highest paid player on the team, but damn near. Bradley Beal, KD, and Devin Booker are all making $53 million. No. He's making $50 million next year, $53 million the year after that, and $57 million the year after that, for a total of $150 million guaranteed. Who's trading for that? No disrespect to Bradley Beal, but a $50 million contract on somebody who is not worth $50 million is not going to get you a ton of value. And I don't really think there's a ton of teams that are going to be wanting to trade for him, especially after watching how injured he was this series and watching how in the playoffs he kind of just disappeared. So that's a tough look. I'm not sure what you even get back for Bradley Beal, but honestly, get something. I don't think keeping him on the squad really is the move. Next is just honestly regular stuff. I think at the top of what you guys need is a point guard. Devin Booker at point guard wasn't the worst thing in the world, but he's not a point guard, and I think Devin Booker would be most effectively used when he doesn't need to have the ball in his hand every second of the game. He doesn't need to bring the ball up the court. You can have somebody create for him, get him looks, give him the ball in his spots, and I think he'll be way better like that. Not to say he didn't play well this season, because he did, but I'd much rather him be at the two guard position where he's naturally comfortable. And they need defenders, and I feel like that's obvious. Every team needs defenders, but the Suns need it really bad. Just looking at this roster, the only people who I could say are defenders are Royce O'Neal, I guess, Grayson Allen, Josh Okogie. And the problem with those guys is that they're kind of liabilities on the other side of the floor other than Grayson Allen. Grayson Allen gives you shooting, but Josh Okogie, you've seen on the floor, you can't really keep him on the floor, because if he's not hitting those open shots, that gives other teams a clear way out of your offense. I don't like how they built this team in the first place, and honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to them blowing it up. If they said, all right, it didn't work, we don't have anywhere we can really go with this, and we don't think we're going to win with this team, I wouldn't mind with them trading all three of them or getting Bradley Beal and KD out of there, or whatever the case may be. But I just don't see this roster as constructed doing any damage next season. I only see teams getting better next season, and I don't know how the Suns even can make themselves any better with the amount of money they already have wrapped up into 3-4 players. We'll see what they can do, but hey man, it's looking really tough for the Suns. Let me know what you think of what I had to say about the Suns down in the comments below, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.